Well, it's time. We need to go from having a roller to running this episode. Ready to go. There it is. Sit it down on the pads. And it should start lining up. There it goes. Now you should start lining it up. Go maybe. I'm trying to remember before I go to a lot of trouble. Maybe it won't. I can't remember. She's a tricky little sucker. Now I think it has to come up from the bottom. So raise the car back up. I can get this fuel line. I had to change the clocking on this fuel pump to work on this Camaro. I had this Procam fuel pump on my cool car. Right there at work. Okay, one more thing out of the way. Power steering pump, fan and extension, radiator hoses. That's pretty well the front. I got the bolts loose on it right now. Until I get my headers, both my headers in, I'll lift the mounts loose. That way if I need to shift the motor around to get the headers in. Got that one in, zip tied up where it won't fall down. That one's the pain in the butt. This one will go easy. We're gonna get this power steering unit next. Get out of the way. Y'all, we fixing to have to rob Peter to pay Paul, because I don't have a complete extra power steering system right now. And we're trying to get Rachel's car going first. So I'm gonna pull my power steering system off my crate racing car, because I've got to have a full set of pulleys and everything for the new motor. And so I think what we're going to do is go with the Jones system. And like I'm going to get the power steering pump and everything, like get the whole kit to go on the front of it anyway. But we are definitely robbing Peter to pay Paul. I bet a few of y'all have done that racing. And because I need the tank, I need everything. So, and if I pull the whole thing, maybe I won't pour fluid everywhere. If I'm lucky, I won't make a huge mess. I'm gonna get this thing off here. This pump right here, I got that pump from Speedway, and I mean, I have spun this joker. You know, I've had this on motors that I have turned 7200 on the 1-to-1 pulley kit, and I've not had a problem with it. That's been a real good unit for what it costs. I think that thing was like 150 bucks or something. I think they're about 180 now, and that is definitely cheaper than some of them out there. Some of them jokers for street stocks are $400, and I'm like, I can't do that. But anyway, it is about 25 degrees out here, but I gotta get it before it gets dark where we can get it on the Camaro. Molly, would you quit? I've got one ignorant border collie. She gets the zoomies, she gets the barkies, she gets the everything. 25 degrees out here, she's out in mud holes. She can't help herself. Just wide open. I got it all in one piece. let's go slap it on. You get down in here some kind of way. I don't know exactly how, but some kind of way. I think what I need to do is bolt the pump on, and then I can maybe fiddle with the rest of it without the pump flopping around. All right, and I'll zip tie that up right there. Be out of the way of the header, won't be soaking up heat, and it's protected. All right, I may get a new radiator hose. That radiator hose sure does seem, it sure does seem flimsy, don't it, y'all? Okay, I ain't gonna hook that up yet, because I'm gonna leave it out of the way while I'm doing the fan and everything. Oh yeah, that's the easy side right there. For those of y'all who have been following along on our Dirt Race Life channel for quite some time through our builds, you already know that I use high temp silicone on my headers. I'm not the only one either. And it works, and don't overthink it. Look, I'm just taking and it don't take much. It ain't gotta be perfect. You see, I waited till I had the header in here where when I was trying to fit the header up through there, I didn't smear it all over stuff. I'm just taking my finger and rubbing it around them. But it flat out works, y'all. And it is easier, and it is simple, and it works, and it don't leak. And so I do it, and I like it, and I recommend it. Now I try not to have a bunch where I don't want a big glob to be squeezed out, because I have squeezed like a glob into the port, and as hot as that exhaust gas is, you know, coming out of the engine and everything, I tell you, you can run a season, you pull this header off, and there will be this bright red silicone inside that header, you know, blocking the passage, just like the day you put it in there. This stuff can take a whole lot more heat than you realize. So, anyway, well, some of you realize it. But yeah, so I try to just kind of take my finger and just smear it down. And if I turn that loose, it's going to fall. And make sure you put some anti-seize on your bolts. Throw it over there. All right, get one in here. And so what I do is I'll tighten her up. And then after we run the motor a little while, we'll run this motor a little bit in the shop, and then we'll tighten them up again. All right, we got the headers in. I went in and threw the spark plugs in. I want to show you right quick. These on the Vortec heads, I like the NGK V-Powers, and here's the ones that I'm running. I'm running the number 9s. This engine right here, it's a little less than 10.5 to 1, probably about 10.3, 10.4 to 1 is the compression. And I'm running the R5724-9 on this one. And I think the code on it 7891 for the actual code. But I was gonna say, like on the Crate 602, this is a good plug in an 8. So like for it, it's a R5724-8, which is a little bit hotter plug. Remember, less compression, hotter on the plug, more compression, colder on the plug. Well, with the NGKs, the lower number is hotter, the higher number is colder. That's different manufacturer to manufacturer. It's just that way on the NGKs. So, like I said, I'm running 9s on this one because it's a little over 10 to 1. If it was a 602, or if I was down at like 9.5 to 1 or something like that, I'd run the number 8s. And on my new engine that I'm building that is going to be over 11 to 1, I'm probably going to put number 10s. I think the 9s would still work as well. So jury's still out on it, but I could possibly run 9s or 10s, and I may just try both and see what works better. But anyway, so plugs are in. You need to put the pulleys on. And of course, I've got a 2 V-belt pulley, so this is just the inexpensive 1-to-1 pulley. What? No, I said 1-to-1. This is a 75% reduction. And the way I do this, the back belt is just running the water pump, and the front belt is also running the power steering. And so you don't have an adjuster, so you have to put the belt on and then slide it together. And it is not, when you have a brand new belt, I will tell you this, I have had to take and loosen the water pump up and actually have the water pump loose where it would droop, and then get the belt onto the pulley and stuff and get it together, and then tighten the water pump up initially. And then once the belt run a little while, I pretty well could just do it like this, where that I slide it on here, I get everything, and you see I've got some studs in my water pump, and that's very crucial to being able to get the bolts in this thing without screaming bloody murder. But anyway, now watch this thing make a fool out of me. There it goes. It's not going to make a fool out of me today. There she went. Right, and so that's the reason that I use these studs right here, is so that it gets it up there. That way, when I'm trying to put the fan on and trying to get them bolts started, I can actually get them started. So I'm running a 2-inch extension here. And those go right there. Let's see how well I can get this to go. Turn that right there. And that's gonna go. A lot of times what I do is I'll get 1 or 2 started, and if I'm fighting with one, I'll just turn it and like bring it to the top, and that works pretty good to get them going. Don't spend a bunch of money on wiring looms. It's just zip ties. See how that is? You run a zip tie across it, and then you just put a zip tie between each one of them like that. Get you a good, you can see how I do that. And then the first time I put the plug wires on, the way I end up having to do this to make one of these up is usually with the headers off. I'll wire everything up where I get the right wire, the right length wires on the right ones for the distributor. And then with them on the car, I can take and sit there and zip tie it all together like that. And then from that point on, I can pull them off, put them back on, and everything's just laid out right after that. So that's the way I do it. And I use a little bit of electrical grease, because boy, when you gotta get these things off, it sure does help to not tear these wires and boots up. I know these things look dirty and everything, but these wires are fine. But I put a little bit of that dielectric grease in the ends of them. Oh, it sure does make them easier to get back off. They don't stick to the spark plugs. I strongly recommend doing that. So I'm gonna get them on before we stab this distributor in. Before I drop this distributor in, I want to prime this oil pump up. I want to show you, I made this one because I could not find my one that I built out of a distributor. That's a 3/8 piece of extension, and you could use anything solid. But anyway, see how I ground a flat and then I welded a 3/4 inch nut on the end of it? I'm just making a drive to drive that oil pump, where I can pump the oil up through the oil filter up into the mains and stuff, and purge a lot of that air out, get that oil up there ready to go from when we fire the engine off. A distributor, an old distributor, and you just grind the teeth off of the gears and then cut the head off where you can put a drill on it to drive it. That works better because it has a collar on the bottom that'll seal up where it can pump oil up into the top half of your engine, up into your lifters and stuff. And so you need that for that. This engine, I'm putting the old cam, the old lifters and everything back in it. They're fine, they're primed. I'm not running in a new cam and everything, but I will say that on a new cam and new lifters and stuff, you really need to either buy a purpose-built primer that's got that collar on it to seal that up and drive that oil up, or like mine was, I don't know where it is, I gotta find that thing, but it was an old distributor that I had just pulled out of a junkyard and then just cut the head off and made it. Either way, it's the same deal. What I do here is I just drop it in and I turn around, hook a drill on it, it turns clockwise. I'm just gonna sit here and run it for a second. It feels really good. I can feel the load on it, so I know it's pumping oil. And I'm just gonna look right quick. Yep, so I had about 20 pounds of oil pressure that was falling back. So I know we are fine. All right, now, drive's in there, okay? And I'm fixing to put this distributor in. And there's a couple of things here, okay? I've got a slot, you can see it. I've got a little slot cut the top of my drive here. Do the same thing on my other one. If you buy one, it'll show it as well. Because that's showing me the slot down below on the drive for the oil pump. Those two line up. So I'll pull it out and show you. So I've got the slot here and the slot here, and both are in alignment. The reason for that is because that distributor, we've got to line that up so that we can get that #1 point where we want it. Now I've got my time set right now at about 25 degrees. 24, 25 degrees is where I've got my time on this engine set. The reason I'm backed up 10 degrees is because when you do this manually, you can't hit the number. It's gonna always, because of just, you know, how close that is, and the engine running, it taking slack up and everything, there will always be a variation of 5 to 10 degrees. So I always try to stab mine in around 10 degrees low, because the engine's gonna crank and run at 15 degrees and it's gonna crank and run at 35 degrees. But if I tried to set it to 35 or set it to 34 and I was off 10 and it was 45, it's not gonna wanna crank on me. It's gonna wanna kick back, it's gonna wanna cause me a lot of problems and everything. And especially firing a new engine up, you don't wanna go through that. You want it to just fire off and go. So I usually try to stab them in about 10 degrees under, and you know, and then when it actually cranks, I put timing light on it, and that's not where it'll be. It may be close to that, but it won't be, you know, exactly where I set it, or it never has been up to this point. All right, so now I see my slot. I'm looking at the bottom. I'm gonna take and I'm gonna set this. I've got a mark on my distributor. I've got a red mark, and that red mark represents where #1 is. So, you know, get that off there. So when I drop this cap on, and line it up, my #1, which is in front of my connector right here, that's #1. So it's 184366572 going around. That #1, I've got a red mark on my distributor. All right, right there. So I'll look at that, and I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna look underneath and I'm gonna see where my drive is. And my drive is just slightly clockwise forward of it, just a little bit. It's not quite, they're not quite 1 to 1. They're really, really close, but not quite. It's just a little forward, about halfway between it and #8. That is where that I need to make sure that I get my oil pump drive aligned, so when it drops in, it'll match up and I won't have this in some crazy position. And remember, your gear means that as it goes in, it's gonna turn. So if I want my #1 pointed directly at #1, I don't want this slot right here to be just slightly forward of it to match what I see here. I gotta come back, because it's gonna turn to it as I drop it in. This can really be a pain. If you haven't done one of these before the first time, it can really drive you nuts. See if we can get where we want to be. All right, right up to there. Yeah, so more than likely I'm not gonna be right here. I'm gonna be right here or somewhere around, but wherever that adjustment is, I'm not gonna end up with my plug-in, you know, up underneath the base of my carburetor or something, being difficult to work with. Okay, so that's what I'm after right here. So that's a good spot. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna leave the cap off. I'm gonna set that right under my mark for where number 1, you know, that mark again is where I just took him, where that post is. I just marked it on the base of the distributor. So right there, and I'm gonna put my clamp on, I'm gonna snug it up, and then we're gonna fire up right there. I've got to change out the water temperature gauge that I had on this engine. When I pulled the engine out of this car, I twisted the end off, the brass end where it goes into the engine. And on my new car, I went to the electronic gauge, which is 10 times easier to work with. Put these water temperature gauges in, they can be a little tricky because you've got to run it all from the dash forward, because it's all one piece. You don't take that line off, because that's a little, it's a hollow copper line inside there that's got mercury in it, and so it's all sealed together. So, you gotta think ahead. Like I said, I had twisted the end off, and there's no fixing them. Pull it out from the inside. Like that. And this new one here, I like those white face gauges for this. It's a little bit simpler because it's just got a ring that spins down on it. Like that. So, it shouldn't be too bad to deal with. Just throw it in the hole. And then I'll hook the lights up on it later. I just need to get it plumbed the right way because I can't fill my car up with water until I do. There we go. And that's like that. And then this goes on here like this. And I'll just leave you like that for now. That way we can get going. Alright. Then you don't go crazy tightening, you know, these, don't go crazy tightening this fitting up on the block, because all you're doing is just sealing that lip right there against the brass fitting in the block. And it doesn't take a lot to do that. And you get it real tight, and that's how you end up like me, sitting there thinking how dumb I am because I twisted it off on the last one. And hopefully, I've learned my lesson. All right, we're all wired up. You see who finally showed up. See, she shows up because she knows it's fixing to ruin. And get this carburetor on. And we're gonna be ready. Well, we gotta fill it up with water. And see my plug there. Gasket. I put copper coat on the gaskets for the carburetor where I don't tear them when I have the carburetor off. If you just got them dry, then you can rip it. It'll split on you sometimes. They'll stick. So a little copper coat can help with that. All right. Drop that on there. And drop you on here. Oh, it would help if I put it in the right direction. And Rachel, there is a cardboard box over there on my bench on the other side of the parts washer, and it's got 2 carburetor springs in it. In one of those cardboard boxes, you'll see 2 barrel springs, little, about 3 inches long a piece, something like that. They may be together. Yep. We're gonna need them.
Where's the washer on one of them? Is it supposed to be on there?
I don't know, just bring it all. No, take that off. I think it just got on there. I was looking for that washer. Okay. All right, so right now I don't have fuel all the way up. My fuel is up to my cutoff for sure, you know, and in the line's low, and I had the line sealed off on the end, so I probably got fuel all the way primed up through it. But of course we're wanting to fire this thing off and not have no trouble. So how do you do that? Of course I set the time. We got the time where we think it's going to fire up and run, or we're hopeful that it's close enough it's going to fire up and run. And the other part is the fuel. And so, Don't go crazy on those, you'll break an ear off. So the way we're gonna do that, we're gonna hook up here. And I have got a filler can with some fuel in it. I'll show you that. Tight. Support this. That's good. Get all this off the car, it's gonna rattle. And there is a pitcher in the corner that we can put water in, I think. We can fill this radiator up. Yeah, I remember how these go. I think I had this one here, if I ain't bad mistaken. I think I had you right here, and then I had you on the back. I like to run springs both forward and back. Both blades, 2 separate sets. If I break that off, break this off, it's still got spring action going on. All right, so again, here's what I do. I got a filler bottle, and we're gonna preload it. And you know how much, I don't know. I don't wanna flood it, so you see what I'm doing here. I know it'll probably hold about that much. It won't take much, and she's gonna bring that fuel up through that fuel pump and fill that bowl up. But you need, you know, some in the bowl to get you going. Otherwise, you're sitting there cranking it over, you know, and you're not doing anything. All right, that's probably enough. So I can make sure, let's see. All right, yep. Okay, so we got fuel. We know it's primed. There we go. Get this out of the way. Let me think. What am I forgetting? That fan shroud might rattle a little bit. I don't think it will. I think I got it clearance right. It's beat up pretty good, but I mean, it works, so we're gonna leave it. She's liable to smash it all in anyway, so I might as well leave it. It is what it is, rookies. Yeah, I do have confidence in her, but I've also got confidence we're gonna do some sheet metal work this year.
Learning experiences.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're half as bad as me my first year, it's gonna be pretty bad. But you see water hitting the floor anywhere. I don't think I forgot any plugs. I hope I didn't. See this thing run. I gotta get this thing out of here because I have got everything ready to go for our crate racing new motor for the orange car. And so I'm itching. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna start, like I've already put the block on the stand and everything, but I keep telling myself, don't touch it, get the Camaro done. And then once we get the Camaro done, then we can get on it. Because I got a message from Shannon Ayers with the Ultimate Street Stock Challenge the other night, and he was sending me the lineup. They're gonna have 8 big races this year across the southeastern U.S. I think the first official one is it's in Georgia. What was the name of the place? Livonia. It's in Livonia, Georgia. I think on March the 14th, 15th, 16th, and that's a 7.5, 8-hour drive for us. It's gonna be pushing it. Then there's one at Wynot on March 3rd. It's not an Ultimate Street Stock Series Challenge Series race, but they're gonna be there. I think Shannon's gonna be there helping them, and it's their I don't know, they got big title belts and everything. Best street stocks races by far. These guys that run that Ultimate Challenge. Yeah, Battle of the States, isn't it?
Yeah.
Battle of the States. And I went brain dead for a minute. How are we doing?
Do we need it completely full?
How far up is it?
I think it's halfway.
Yeah, oh yeah, put another one in there.
I thought you couldn't put regular water.
Huh? We're gonna switch it.
Oh.
If I got a leak or anything, I'm gonna have to turn around and drain it back out. So let's just put some tap water in it. And then once we know we're good and everything, I'll get some water wetter and some distilled water, and we'll fill it up. All right, turn it on, Rachel. Let's see if it'll fire up. fan somewhere because I hear it. Oh, it'll be all right. All right, come on. That's a really old carburetor, and it has served me well. I hope it serves Rachel well. And I think the fan shroud clearanced itself. I'm not hearing it rattling around anymore. Everything looks good. Probably going to take and go ahead and get the transmission on it, throw the drive shaft back in it, and put a gear in it for where I think we're going to go for her first test and tune. And I'm probably going to under gear the car at first. Like, I'm going to go down one number lower than what I would normally run at the track and just kind of load the car up a little bit, because I want Rachel to work on it first, driving the car around the track and not worry so much about the throttle getting it out from under her. I want her to be able to kind of get in that throttle off the corner, and then I'll just free the car up as I need to, just because we're running a little bit lower gear. That way she'll be able to kind of get her foot in it and get going. Probably going to run this motor 3 or 4 times on this oil that's in it. I've just got some straight 30 weight break-in oil in it. I'm gonna run it 3 or 4 times and let it get that good heat cycle going, and then I'll dump that out and I'm gonna put 2050 in it. I've got the clearance for 2050, I'm gonna put 2050 back in it. I'm just gonna run the Valvoline VR1 in it. It's what I'm gonna put in it, with a 1060 or 1061 Racing Wix oil filter. And what we got working on now? We gotta get seat belts in. We gotta mount that seat for you. But that's the next video. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, where you'll see that video when it comes up. All right, I'll see y'all later.